Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Fine.
Nice.
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so today we will be discussing about a topic of freedom of speech. So based on our articles that we already did on assignment 2, we stand that free speech is not hate speech. However, this topic is very controversial because different people have different opinions. To start our discussion, I would like to ask Zulaikha. So what is your opinion regarding of this topic?
Thank you, Shamimie. So it's not a hate speech, and I personally agree to that stance also. And why I said so, because based on the article, Should We Ban Dangerous Speech by Jeffrey Howard that I read, he said that dangerous speech should not be protected by the right of freedom of expression. And the dangerous speech that he meant is also mean the hate speech. And why he said so? Because he said that people need to focus on moral duty, not just on moral rights. People may have the moral rights to preach hatred, but they also have moral duty for not doing so.
Yes.
People have the responsibility not to engage others to the something that can harm them. Okay, for example, for the claim he had present an evidence, which is there is a boy, he had killed 9 parishioners at the church. Why? Because he was driven by a website who purposely want to ignite a war between white and black people. So Jeffrey said if Dylan had not encountered that website or other website like this, he would not commit such crime. So he said that all of us are responsible for our doings. Means we should not engage others.
I agree with you, Zulaikha, because when I'm referring to an article titled "Free Speech Does Not Exclude Hate Speech," it actually opposite to our stand, but there are counter arguments that speaks the same, because in the article, they say that people who support hate speech restriction law often argue that speech leads to action, and it is true. Because as referring to your example, if the person who commit act of violence did not come across the hate speech, they may prevent both hate speech and hate crime simultaneously.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And in the article, give a rebuttal. Any person who use hate speech should not be blamed. But in our stand, if a hate speech inspires violence, isn't it a sign for us to take action to restrict hate speech?
Yes,
right.
Of course. Of course.
I also referred to another article, which is why America needs a hate speech law. Okay, so in this article, they're talking about the First Amendment, and it was actually designed for a simpler era because the First Amendment actually protects the people who use it, even though the bad guys, if they use the amendment, they are still safe from the society's laws. What do you think, Izazi, about this article?
I agree with Alia, and yes, America does need a speech law because in this modernization era, everything can be done by the touch on our fingertips, and and as I've read this article, it also links hate speech and the power of digital era. And when we, as for example, by delivering hate speech in, for example, by post it in media, social media, people might get harmed by the post. So uh, this this statement can say that hate speech does bring good and bad by the use in social media. So as Alia mentioned about the First Amendment, I also want to state that the use of hate speech can be a help in our life, and the First Amendment created to protect the hate speech. In and in other hand, it is not bad to live with hate speech. Maybe I think So I can simply conclude that on hate speech, it is acceptable and not forbidden to use hate speech as it can bring a good effect in our life. Okay, so for my next article, I read an article by E.A. Jelton entitled "Does the First Amendment Protect Hate Speech?" So in this article, it appeal more on the deep definition on hate speech. So I can conclude that majority agree that hate speech is not free speech, as hate speech conclude and hate speech define the as it is involved insulting, discriminating, and threatening to some people. For Supreme Court, no. For example, Supreme Court also stated that fighting word is hate speech, as it appeal harmful statement. Hence, the First Amendment again only protect the speech if it is emotionally injury, which means doesn't involve physical contact or physical injury. Still, in this article, it is not recommended to be used to us to use hate speech in our life, as it will bring more bad than goods. So lastly, I would like to conclude. The author, E.A. Jelton, loves to mention and repeat on his claim that hate speech express the real meaning of of hate speech. Yes, so in this article, majority and many claims are opposed to use of hate speech in our life. So what you guys think?
Yes, I agree with Izazi. She said that hate speech is not recommended to be used in our daily life, right? So I just
Yes.
want to
Yes.
add a little point from the perspective as a student, because we are students, right?
Yes.
So based on the article entitled "There's a World of Difference Between Free Speech and Hate Speech" by BIK20903, this author talked about how university should not giving a platform to a speaker to give hateful views. However, she believed that students like us are free to express ourselves. I agree with the author, and in my opinion, hate speech is very harmful and offensive since it always related with religions and racism. So I had searched on Google and found out a survey that was conducted by the Forced March Group from May 28 to June 2 in 2019. They found out that 51% agree that public institution should revoke invitation to guest speaker when the speaker will provoke large-scale protests, and 72% agree that students should be allowed to express their opinions. So based on this
Yes,
survey, we know that Americans are not supporting hate speech in university especially. And university itself is not a platform for spreading false rumor and also hate views. And as we know, everyone, just like us, are given a right to give a free speech despite our religion, or races, or even wealth. Just like us
Yes.
students, we are free to express ourselves. But we must know that hate speech is not something we can actively express, especially around the campus. So, as a solution to this problem, university should take action to avoid from giving hateful views and keep the environment conducive for us for learning purposes, as it might affect the students' academic later on, right?
Yes.
And I think that's all from me.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's all for our discussion today. So all in all, we can conclude that free speech is not a hate speech. People may have the right to give a hate speech, but there's a limit to do so, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that's all.